The dude ran.
Oh, he chased
Oh,
him.
he's trying-
Squared up.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's in my head, so I can tell you the gist of it.
Was he
but
Harvey Weinsteining you? Like, do you think she's like, yeah, pitch me your ideas. You know, we'll see if you get a role.
I was hoping so, dude.
What? Oh my God.
I was snowboarding in Sugar Mountain, which is what...
Shredding on the slope.
I tried to shred some powder, but I ended up shredding my knee. Trying to be in the creative side of it, and she's like, "Do you have any ideas or whatever?" She's like, "You can just pitch it on me or whatever." So
She wanted to steal your ideas.
I'm sure she did,
She's
but
like,
I mean,
they steal my ideas, I steal your ideas.
I
You
mean,
think
it's
I'm
in
keeping
my
you around?
it's in my head, so I can tell you the gist of it.
Was he
but
Harvey Weinsteining you? Like, do you think she's like, yeah, pitch me your ideas. You know, we'll see if you get a role.
I was hoping so, dude. I was desperate.
Let's hear this idea, though. I want to hear about it.
So in the future, my idea is that if robots take over most everything because of AI and they're better at everything, then the human population will be left towards like sort of like a zoo type thing, where it's like people are just kept around for, you know, the entertainment of robots.
Sure.
Like we're in like this zoo that has everything catered to. Everyone has a mansion, but it's like a limited number of people. And then it's like it starts out like that. So all the robots do all the work, but it's easy for them and they can figure out way better ways. So life for a human being is sort of pointless because they don't have anything to do. Everything's catered to. And the protagonist learns that there is something that humans have over robots. And towards like the end of it, even though he develops relationships with robots and other people, like he gives his life for a particular part of the movie. And
Spoiler
that's
alert.
like something that robots can't do. And I told her that. And I was like, I guess the idea that it teared her up because it's LA and everyone's like for themselves and it's like super cutthroat. It's the idea that somebody's like, I have an idea. What if somebody gave their life for something important? And she's just like, you mean other than money? No,
No. She teared up because she was like, this is going to make me so much money.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, she's going to jack my idea.
Right, and as you mentioned that, right, like not even what humans can do, right? Because you just mentioned something very interesting about money, right? And it's like, if there's robots that can do things, right, then right now we're used to trading labor, you know, our time for money, labor for money. But in that future, if they're able to do that, then labor is no longer a thing, right? So how do you even have money, right? You either have a robot or you don't. Like, what is money even in that scenario? Or the people that do things for money now in that world, right? Like, if you're doing it for money now, and there's not the possibility of like you making money because it's robots making money, right? Like, then what is also the meaning to your life? Because now there's not the reward of the art of the being the better, maybe the internal thing, and there's not the money reward either, right? So what does it mean? What does meaning mean as a human in that scenario?
How do you find meaning? You mean?
Yeah.
How do you find meaning in a world that the original things you think in modern day society have meaning, like money, status, and whatever that people strive to attain for? What do you have to strive for when all those are given to you?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to talk to some of these kids in Hollywood who are raised by celebrity parents. I think they know exactly what it feels like to have no ambition.
And we know those are, you know, like excellent examples of society, right? Like nothing ever goes wrong there, you know, like.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You see rich kids who
Nepotism babies.
They're
called
like,
nepotism babies.
they get all that, but it's also like, I think they like fuck their life up just so they have some sort of like
something to fight against. You got to have some struggle.
Yeah, like they're giving themselves their own struggle by getting.
It's like
addicted
you
to
know,
shit and stuff.
upper class white kids where they're just like, I'm gonna get a drug problem because fuck you, mom and dad.
Yeah.
Well, then I pose you another
You
question.
wanted life to be easy. Well, now it's hard.
You wanted
I'm
me a
addicted to
doctor.
heroin.
well, that actually is a great. It brings me to another point. Then, is America the upper class kid? Right? It's the fact that we've had it kind of chill, you know, for a while, that we have nothing to push against, so we need to create things to push against, and then maybe that thing is each other, right? Because there's no outside force to push against. So, we'd push towards the other that we create internally.
Well, we always have that saying, first world problems. So, you could say that's true. It's like we're the rich kid or the kid who's at it easy because we tend to addict ourselves to a lot of stuff. And self-destruct in a lot of ways for whatever reason. I'm guilty of it. I think we all done self-sabotaging things like
Taco Bell's practically a self-hate crime right there.
Yeah, I think it's, and I think it's important. I think you're right. We all have made mistakes or whatever, and you're from our generation. Like I'm 37. How old are you?
36.
Okay, so yeah, perfect. So you live in an age where you could forgive and forget, but there's no forgetting anymore.
I'm just like I have back pain and I tore my knee. I'm starting to realize you start to see your what is it called? Like how life is
frail,
fickle, frail. Yeah, you see your frailty. It humbles you a lot. So that's how you when you're young and in your 20s and your body just feels like, oh, you drank 20 beers and you bounce up the next day. You're you might throw up, but you're still bounding.
But then
with
you
energy.
chug a Mountain Dew and another beer, and by God, you get back on the road.
Yeah, nothing gets rid of a hangover like more beer. Remember that, kids?
What did you do? Because I remember exactly when it's a moment. It was in my 30s where I'm like, oh shit, this is old man shit. There was something happened. I'll tell you right off the bat. Because I joined a kickball league, and I had been in kickball leagues before, right? And I remember I punted it and I jetted towards first, and everything normal, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's something happening to my leg. I pulled my groin, and I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't warm up because guess what? Warming up was never necessary.
That's for old people.
Yeah, that's for fucking old people. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? I was like, oh, this is different. This never happened before. And the machine.
Did you have an aha moment?
I guess I tore my knee this February. So
oh shit.
What were you doing?
I was snowboarding in Sugar Mountain, which is
shredding on the slope.
I tried to shred some powder, but I ended up shredding my knee.
Well.
Yeah. So I went to Sugar Mountain with my two of my brothers, three of my brothers.
So you're an experienced
we kind of
snowboarder.
I used to live out near Tahoe. I used to live in California. So I went to school at UC Davis. Go Aggies.
Nice. Yeah.
It's not a popular school. Nobody knows about it. It's the only UC that people aren't when I go, I went to a UC, people are just like, well, that's a UC?
Well,
it's the only UC that doesn't have a known sports team.
That's called the Aggies, you gotta wonder.
Our mascot was this cartoon character farmer.
Yeah.
And another group of two would get into a dairy cow, a cartoony dairy cow.
I always wanted one of those costumes and somebody to do that with. I think you
gotta have a lot of trust in that situation.
Absolutely, yeah. But I was a kid, so maybe those dreams can die now. So
yeah, especially if somebody farted in that suit, that would be.
I'd fart on purpose. I'd want to be on the front, and I'd fart on purpose. Yeah.
No Indian food.
Nobody would expect
that.
it from me.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Shirt.
So
get away from it.
I brought the shirt I drew.
Oh my god!
Of downtown Raleigh.
Does that say Kim King comedy?
Tim King. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I read that with a K. Kim.
Everyone makes that same joke.
You should make it Kim Ting.
That I put the K in there because if you go into Urban Dictionary, comedy with a K means a vain attempt at being funny.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I try to do, and
we like subtlety.
It seems like a vain
Very
attempt.
Subtle.
Well, speaking of attempts, right? What got you into comedy? What's the reason you started comedy? If that's not too private of a question, of course.
No, not at all. Well, I guess I have similar backstories to some of my favorite comedians. I come from a big family, so I'm the youngest of 8.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I was navigating personalities for most of my childhood, and then I just thought always having people in a big crowd in a room or whatever like we always ate dinner together. So like 10 at a table, like
Yeah.
like a freaking knight's table. I'm like, where did my dad even find a table this long? Like, a castle.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I
Humble
have
beginnings.
7 brothers and sisters.
Oh,
as
yeah?
well.
That's
Yeah. We had
awesome.
a table and it had the leaves so you could expand it.
Oh,
so.
okay. I think we
If
downgraded
we were
to
all
that at some
at the
point.
table at the same time, which I had 2 older siblings and they weren't with us all the time, so there was usually just 8 of us at a table. So that it was usually okay.
So
10 of you at a table though, that makes it really.
it was a lot.
It was like a castle, huh?
Yeah, it
Super
was.
cool.
Well, I had like a little play. What is that called? Play set or that company?
Play
like,
school?
Play school picnic table. You know those little yellow ones for kids.
Uh-huh.
Like on the ground next to the table
Yes.
until I was like 5, I think. I started sitting at the table.
At
with
the big
everyone.
boy table. They're like,
Yeah.
we'll let you up here now with the real people.
Yeah, I used to love Play School. I used to remember specifically, there used to be this bus, this yellow bus, and it was the Play School little characters that look like
Yeah.
an egg, really. Like they're kind of like,
Little peg people.
Yeah, and then you just put them inside, and it was like a bus. But
Yeah.
there's not a lot of Play School
Oh
in
yeah, I
Peru.
do remember the bus and the egg people.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a big family, and that's how you got into comedy because they tortured
In
you.
California?
They did,
or,
that was-
No, let's hear
that's
it.
the
Come on.
sort-
yeah, in
Well,
California?
that was like well, I mean, I listened to the people who one of my, like Brian Regan, Jim Gaffigan, those are big family people. So I started listening to comedy because I had like similarity in that. And then in middle school, I had pretty strict parents and they didn't let me see like The Matrix came out, like
Oh, wow.
other
You were not allowed to see The Matrix?
was it not? We ended up renting it years later, and I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But we weren't like my parents are pretty strict about like they assume when they see like MPAA rating, they're like, "These people got it together. They know what ages people should be seeing stuff at." They're very
they hard
like
stuck to that,
They're very
huh?
trusting of
That's
like
so funny.
institutions and stuff like that, and. So they see like the rules and they're just like, well, we're going to follow that. And then they had like a strict rule of me not hanging out after midnight. So like all my friends have pretty like sick. My parents are from the 40s because I'm the youngest age, so they're old. So, and then everybody I was like going to school with had parents that were from like the 60s. So they didn't care. They were just like, yeah, as long as you're not doing too much drugs, I guess.
Were parents in the 40s, like getting touched a lot? Because my parents as well, like they're like, you're not allowed to stay overnight. There's no sleepovers. They can come here,
went a different
but
way
you're
with
not
that.
staying there.
Yeah, like it's I mean it's because of like their parents. I mean it's a generational difference. There was
Yeah.
definitely a cultural shift after
Yeah.
the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, my
for
mom
sure.
was born in 1950, and my dad was born, I think, in 1947. And let's not even talk about her dad.
My dad was born in 1938.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's insane.
Wow.
He's really cool. He's very cool.
He's
He's
probably
very
one of the very he's
interesting.
like one of the very few cool people from that time. I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
No, he's the
he
coolest.
still
Are
likes
you kidding
20-year-olds
me?
to know, like,
Oh,
he's
he
the
chases
same.
skirts like you would not believe.
Oh, so he's
He-
kind of like an old dog.
He was an ad man, like in the show
Oh,
Mad Men.
shit.
Oh yeah, I was watching it one day. Like I'd never seen it before. I'm watching it at home, and he comes in. He's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh, it's Mad Men. It's about the ad men in the '60s." And he sits there and he watches a little bit, and he goes, "It was just like that." And I was like,
serious?
"I don't like this show anymore. I hate that show." So I never watched it actually because all I could think of my
Don
dad.
Draper.
He was
Your
just-
dad was Don Draper.
He was. I think he might have been.
Just going into Manhattan just to cheat.
He worked in like a big city like Chicago, but it was before I was born. He worked there in like the
Chicago. Oh,
60s
that's
and
cool.
70s. I guess into the 80s, but I didn't get to go anywhere cool, so
Oh no.
no.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I was on the tail end of the, like you were in the younger, I was in the
Yeah.
younger, so
So he like
wasn't-
retired when you were
He
a
did
kid.
twice when I was a kid.
He retired twice?
Twice when I was a kid, yeah. He got bored. He's
Yeah.
very spry. He bikes everywhere and he
whoa.
jogs and he does everything. I mean, he still goes to work every day.
How old is he?
85,
God,
I think.
he's like Jim Payne in our
Oh,
scene.
are you kidding me? He puts Jim Payne to shame.
How old is
yeah,
Jim Payne? Do
but
you have
like-
any idea?
He's
89.
85.
He's 89?
Yeah,
I thought he was 85.
Holy shit.
I think he said it in a set once.
Well,
I
we're
told
just
my
at-
mom, I'm like, my friend Japan, how old he is. He's like 60 or like,
You said 60? That's so
dude,
funny.
he's up there. He's way up there.
Then we need to get him in the studio quick. I didn't know he was that old.
Yeah, you guys need to get him as a guest. I'm cross my heart, and that.
Fuck, I like him so
nothing bad
much. I didn't
happens.
know that. God damn.
He's very interesting. So your family, your parents are both old though.
Yeah, they're both 76.
Yeah. That's cool though.
Yeah, they're the same age, so it's kind of like you don't see that as often anymore. It's like
No.
just two people, kind of like the same class, I guess, getting married and staying together.
Same
for
race, right?
They love each other.
50 years.
That's what he meant,
Yeah, same class, you know?
I mean, I always know that the love is still alive because every time I go over there, they're in separate rooms, So,
Oh no.
Oh, you know what? That's kind of more like one of our neighbors, Like, I never understood that. And I'm like, you have children. Like, then again, I was raised like Catholic, so that's not a thing in Peru, but I don't know if that
What's
religion.
not a thing? Sleeping in separate rooms?
In Peru, you're very, very exposed to Catholicism because that's the only religion that really, 99% of the people in Peru are Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the sleeping in different rooms. Like, I don't know what our neighbors
they
are.
don't sleep in different rooms. I was just saying they're always like
No, but our neighbors do sleep in different rooms.
Oh, okay.
That's why you mentioned it.
That's common. Not that common for married couples, but like it's definitely it's been a thing for a
Is it?
while.
Oh.
Yeah, my grandparents slept in the same room, but they were separate, like twin beds. They used to have
My great grandparents did that too.
Yeah, they used to sleep together, and then I think by the time they were like 50 or 60, they're like, what's the point of us? Like, it's better.
Yeah.
I guess they
I
like.
can tell you that Andy wishes all my stuff were in a different room.
You'd be sleeping.
No, he's
you'd be
got the
sleeping in a
coolest stuff.
doghouse.
No, it's like, have you ever watched The League? That show?
Yeah.
Well, my side of the room is like Rafi. It's just a bunch of chairs stacked up to the roof. They're load bearing chairs.
They're
A fort.
they're an eyesore, is what they are.
Oh,
I don't care as long as it keeps it on that side of the room.
Yeah.
You got like one man cave to just trash.
Well, it's either
No.
clean or get more
It's all
cannabis.
of us.
Like they'll both have the effect, the same effect of not noticing that there's a mess.
That's right.
Yeah.
You ignore the same messes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's teamwork.
Like, you want to clean or do you want to get high? You told me.
Have you ever cleaned while high?
I'm not the type.
I am. I'm actually like,
You get very detail oriented.
yeah.
I'm like, I cleaned this corner and it looks brand new. Oh shit, the rest of the house.
See, I'll do a bunch of stuff. I just prefer to be a little bit high when I do most things.
Yeah. Just
why
have a
not?
little buzz.
We're all
going.
gonna get blown up to World War III tomorrow.
Looking at
so, like,
spreadsheets is much more interesting anyway. If
Yeah.
you're just a little baked,
Listen, we just got out
Yeah,
of.
yeah. I was gonna say when you were like more interesting than getting high.
No.
We just
Yeah,
got out of
I got
like
you.
a crazy world lockdown. Like it's like, like if there's a time to live, there's now. Like
For sure.
Yeah, people should do what they have on their bucket list. Like that was one of the things I decided to do once I left Los Angeles, where I was like, it's a struggle here, and things aren't necessarily happening in a particular order that I want them to. So, and I came back to be like closer to family, but I was also like, if I have a little bit more freedom because I'm not stressed to the gills from living in a city, like what are some of the bucket list items I have? One of them was to travel to Australia.
Were you able to do that? Have you?
Yeah, I did. This was before the pandemic.
Yeah?
So it's like
Yeah, because they don't let you in after the pandemic. They locked that shit down.
Yeah, I was lucky I made that decision because it was like 2019 and I stayed there for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Did like
that's
a backpacking
amazing.
thing. Yeah, Sydney to Melbourne to Cairns. And,
Oh, wow.
What an amazing
Brisbane.
experience.
Yeah.
he was there because he said Melbourne instead of Melbourne.
Yeah. Melbourne.
Melbourne.
That's how they say it. They Melbourne. I'm like, I hear some of those consonants in there when you say it, like,
Yeah.
they're not like Melbourne.
Yeah,
They're
you're like,
Mel-
I only know how to say it with the R, with the ER.
Melbourne.
That's how I would have said it. So
I was saying-
now I know.
Cairns is spelled Cairns. So I was like, how do I get to Karen's?
Yeah, it's Karen.
And
for sure.
they were like, what?
Yeah.
I'd like to see them pronounce some of our names.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Like the Poconos. Come on, give me a break. Hey, that's the silliest
Bacon
word.
Maybe it's
The
something about
Poconos,
white
yeah.
people on an
Bacon.
island, like the Irish. Like, yeah, it's a lot of fun to crack. And it's like, how does it spell that? Like crack? Where's the I?
Craig.
Yeah,
But
like a
that's
lot
so
of
funny
fun.
because I would
like
say
that.
Craig. Like
And then you have Australia. So what is it about, white people on an island? They just forget to pronounce shit. Like the Irish,
Are
the
you
Australian,
mostly
Poconos.
Irish?
No,
No.
my mother's from England.
No, she's a conqueror.
okay,
She's a
okay.
conqueror. She's
She's
British.
conquered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't conquer South America. The Spanish beat you to it, but
Yeah.
Maybe we didn't want to go.
I'm like Irish, British, and like Eastern European. Like
You hella white, huh?
yeah, super. I'm like a mix of all the
Mixed
whiteness. It's kind of like mother of pearl, It's
Yeah.
got that Eastern European. That's why I'm like not pale white, because I got my grandmother. She doesn't know who her parents are, and she became a traveling entertainer for the military back in the.
Neat.
She used to play guitar, and that's how she met my grandfather on my
like the
mother's
USO
side.
tours and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
That's
Hey,
so
that's very
She
cool.
played
cool.
guitar and sang for the troops.
Nice.
So
That's how she met my dad, and she's like this 4'11", like she looks Eastern European. I'm like, I don't know. Are you
You're like, she's a piece.
yeah, Croatian or something? I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I had an old boss that was Croatian and lived in Australia, so he's out in Australia. It was hilarious.
An Australian Croatian, but isn't he just? I mean, Croatians are just white, so
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
people.
so it's just like another white guy with an Australia. I want to see it. I really like it when you see Asian people with Australian accents.
Yeah.
That's common there. Too.
I know, and
Yeah.
it makes me really happy. It just, it's so surprising.
I mean, I could see a mistake. I mean, drop somebody, and I think it's. I grew up in South Florida, right? And I think, especially if you go into different places where there's different people, right? Like, racially or just even if it's the same race, but ethnically, where there's some ethnic differences, where you're like, if you didn't live there, you're not gonna be able to notice the subtleties within that. Like for example, if you get dropped off in Peru and Ecuador, you're not gonna know the fucking difference. Like if you talk to the people, like you may, but there are subtle differences that, okay, if I'm sure that's why the people in South America, they're like, oh yeah, like to an outside perspective, I'm sure we all look the same, but you can tell the difference,
From inside, yeah.
from inside, right? Like I'm sure, like from the outside, like if you put a Scotsman, an Irish, and a British person right next to each other, like
all look the same.
how am I gonna tell a difference? But I'm sure they can, maybe.
I don't know about that.
There's
Maybe.
people who try to pride themselves on telling the difference between. It was like a thing, like and I think like in college or something, people would be like, "Oh, you look kind of French," because people do that to me all the time. They
That
come
sounds
up
like
to
an
me-
insult, like,
Yeah, they'd be like, "Are you
you're like a little twink French guy.
Yeah. When I had a goatee one time,
Oh, you had a
somebody was
goatee.
like,
Oh.
"You look." They're like, "Are you?" A girl was like, I was on a date, and she's like, "I can guess your ethnicity. You're mostly French," and I was like, "Not at all." And then,
And then you didn't have sex that night, you
Yeah.
dummy.
well, I mean, we don't need to. We don't need to go
We don't
into
need to expand on that. You're like, I
detail.
insulted her, and she's still
It's like that girl like to get
dating
negged.
tips with Tim
Yeah,
King.
I was just like,
I just came up with a new segment.
I was
think
like,
that'd
"Oh
be great.
man, I found one that likes insults." I was like, "You're ugly," and she's like, "I'm so turned on right now."
You know what? That would be a great segment. We put you in a smoking jacket, an ascot, like shave you up and
And a
like,
bubble pipe.
Yeah, and like a martini glass, like the most interesting man. He's
Full
like
of Diet
dating
Coke.
tapes with the king, Tim King.
Oh yeah, give me some Dos Equis. I love that shit. Look Dos Equis with lime.
So tell us more about your family. That must be so interesting. I mean, because they helped you get into comedy. Apparently, there's a million of them, and
No, they helped shape my desire to have. Well, so like when I was
to escape them and run away to LA.
to escape, yeah, to escape. Like I think 'cause, so I was talking about the Matrix and stuff. I wasn't able to go, and so like when you're not able to do stuff in middle school, like you can be at a million field parties and all these other things that kids do around here in North Carolina, and you don't show up to like one movie or like a one party or whatever, and people start forgetting to invite you to things.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
And I'm like, what? Because I can't do one thing, and then so like it became like that. It's always a game of keep up, And I kind of started losing invites to things. And on Friday nights, sometimes I would have like nothing to do. And I used to watch Friday Night Stand Up with Greg Giraldo.
Oh,
Like
I
if I didn't
love
have anything
Greg
to do,
Giraldo.
I would
love
watch
Greg.
that.
It's
And
one of
I
my
was-
heroes.
Yeah, so it was almost like an open mic because it's like all these no-name comics. I mean, they're not open mic, tenure. I mean, they're not I guess open mic like loose. They're like tight sets. But it's like, to me, it's like I don't know these guys. And I just remember like jokes from that time where it was like that guy never, I can even remember names. I'm like, that guy never made it. But I still remember some of those jokes. And it's like, it didn't matter that like they didn't matter that they was like their career launched off or whatever. I was like, they still were able to create like funny jokes that I still think like are, A level, but it's like, you got to contribute that much. I mean, it's fun just to contribute to learn how to write jokes.
That I 100% agree on. Like,
Yeah.
but I think we live in, and I don't know if it's always been like that, but so focused on the result. And maybe that leads to a lack of fulfillment because that euphoria, that moment of success, that moment of the result is so small in comparison with all the time that the preparation takes,
Yeah.
and the grind, like what we've been really getting to absurdism, what people call, the myth of Sisyphus pushing eternally the rock up the hill, only
No.
for the rock to come back down the hill. Well, in short story, he pissed off the Greek gods and they sentenced him to forever push that rock up a hill. And then once he gets to the top, it rolls all the way down and he has to roll it up again. A lot of people look
That's
at
like
that.
an eternal punishment thing.
Yes.
I've heard of this story. I just don't know the names.
Yeah. A lot of people look at this negatively, right? But if you, the thing is like, it's almost like an allegory to life, right? We go into our jobs, right? We do thing and we start it all over again, right? We put things in order, they get back into disorder, right? And I think a lot of people found frustration with that where I found a lot of life is how you take it, right? About perspective. And if you picture Sisyphus happy, you have to imagine Sisyphus happy, that pushing of the stone gives him purpose because if he's happy pushing the rock, maybe he's getting stronger, maybe whatever, then that's not really a punishment. Then you're rebelling against the mundane or the loop that you're caught in life because guess what? I wanted to do it. Yes, I am enjoying the process. Like the journey is the destination. So I love what you said about, yeah.
You sound like every white girl's Instagram that puts those like motivational. Today's not a bad day.
Yeah.
It's just a day for learning, or something like that.
It's very funny that you put it that way, but I think
Well, I'm sure you don't have a bunch of slogans on your
I don't
Instagram.
even have. I haven't had
Yeah,
social
yeah.
media in 4 years.
That's good. That's
Because
healthy.
see, I practice what I preach.
That's
and I'm
good.
like, this thing is absurd, so I'm not going to do it anymore. It's not.
How do you
bringing my life
feel
joy.
about those slogans that girls sort of like
I mean,
literally cover their whole Instagram with?
I don't know. I don't specifically have a problem with those slogans. I think that they're probably really great. I mean, that's what we're saying right now. But
Right.
I guess that's what I'm saying is I do have not a problem, but I think you should practice what you preach 100%. And that if you are out here and you're espousing all of these things, put your money where your mouth is. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say I do in every instance, but I certainly strive to be that type of person that actively, practices what I preach.
Do you have like a positive affirmation you go or
A
something?
positive affirmation. You don't know me like you should. No.
Yeah.
Or
I
I
feel
will
like that's
burn
what-
this bitch to the ground. That's another one. I don't know if there's a positive affirmation. There's lots of things that I say, but I consider myself a very positive person. I don't wake up and, mantra or anything like that.
Okay,
So,
you don't do that stuff.
My slogan, I probably have one. And yeah. Do I have a slogan?
Cut out.
Okay.
We all have jobs.
Listen, I've seen you vape on this show. I don't know what you're talking about.
We have not. No.
I have.
You have?
But guess what? Delta 8 is legal here.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Whatever.
Exactly. How do they know?
The closer it gets to the states around it, then they're gonna be sad about all that tax money that's going over the border. So it's.
Yeah, that's where you got to build that wall, right, baby?
I'm just saying, there's a reason, before it was legal wherever in Colorado, or when it became legal in Colorado, people would just from the states around it. Just go into Colorado, get your stuff, and go back to your respective homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those states are going to get tired. They get tired of not having that revenue. Of course,
Yeah.
they're going to.
Oh yeah, Colorado was just they had money trucking in
But they've got
when that
cannabis trucking out by the truckloads for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's
Money
just
coming
money on
in.
money. They're printing
Yeah.
money.
Unless you have an entirely homogeneous area, it's gonna happen, right? If one state makes it legal and another
Exactly.
one doesn't, right? Imagine you were in the military, right?
yeah.
Imagine if a certain rank could get high, but others couldn't. Everybody's getting high, right? Like if all of a sudden you're able to introduce some kind of like,
I see what you're
exception to a group that's hanging out with the other group, there's gonna be more uptake in the other group. You know, like it's the States.
social proof, like monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, like it's gonna be more accessible, right? For example, if yeah. I mean, I had an example, but I completely lost it. Like,
'Cause you get high.
yeah, well,
One of my friends of a friend got kicked out for smoking spice. You guys remember that stuff?
Spice. Isn't that stuff make you
yeah.
crazy though?
It was crappy old synthetic THC.
Well, and that's the whole
trash.
thing because I heard that it was just like whatever, and then they sweep it up off the floor and stuff it all in a thing, and then it makes you crazy.
Yeah, it was so like chemical based that like
Yeah.
some people responded to it very negatively.
Yeah, for sure.
they should have just waited
I was
until.
terrified of it. I was like, no thanks. And I was freaked out. I found out a buddy of mine, his friend, smoked it, and I was like, he can't come to my house anymore. Like I was serious because it was right around that time that everybody was getting their face chewed off because of bath salts.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
Florida, it was constant, always in the news. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what this is, but you're saying synthetic, and I know this guy, and I didn't trust him before. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I mean, there's, I mean, that's still a threat. I mean, or
I'm
concern is stuff being laced with like
Oh, sure.
fentanyl
Yeah, yeah.
being.
What drug
big.
do they lace with fentanyl? What's the big drug that it
They're
comes
they've
packaged
been putting
in?
it in weed a lot.
What?
No.
Yeah, there was an incident in LA where like 2 comedians died, and one that I knew of because I used to go to the store and I used to see there's this Katie Quigley. She,
I think I heard of that. Didn't like a couple of them, and she almost OD'd, didn't she?
yeah, she survived, and the 2
Yeah.
guys that smoked with
They
her
passed
passed.
away.
Yeah, that was like 2 years ago, I think.
That was insane though, because I remember
Yeah.
reading about that.
Yeah.
It was weed.
Yes,
that they
they
was
just smoked some weed that was at like a
Insane.
party or club or whatever.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can't
and
trust
it's
anybody.
it's so prevalent there. You wouldn't even like California. Oh, they probably got this from a shop because you can just walk into the store and buy it.
Yeah. So do you think that has to do with, cannabis has become so strong that people are chasing that much harder high. They're not going to buy this if it doesn't get them like obliterated. But people are, their tolerance is so high and they're expecting more and more because, we've got these chemists in a lab just making our cannabis.
Yeah,
Like,
dude, people be smoking shatter. I don't even know how people do that. Where it's like 40 to 50% THC, like crystals. I'm like, you're basically smoking crack weed,
for sure.
Like you've gone on to, you might as well just go to straight crack because
Oh, for sure.
You're
Have you
smoking
seen some
crack.
of the pipes? They look like crack pipes.
Yeah, they're smoking weed out.
Yeah. I think we have a couple around here somewhere.
Yeah, all these news reports that keep coming out and be like, weed leads to psychosis. I was like, are these people smoking like butter or like
Batter.
batter or
Shatter,
shatter or,
Shatter or rosin or
Hash rosin, live rosin.
Yeah.
I can tell you completely safe.
Yeah, like know your limits, like psychologically.
For sure, yeah.
If anything, we're kind of upset because we're running low at that time. We only have fucking garbage ass regular organic weed. Like what is that? What am I, a peasant? Like
Well,
Organic, that's top shelf. What are you talking about?
organic. I mean, it is. It's good stuff. Don't get me wrong.
it's
but-
bad when like hold on, I have to smoke how much weed to get high? No, I'm good. I'll go straight to the concentrate.
Oh no, you might want to cut back a little.
Yeah, well, I think we're 15 years too late. Funny enough, I never smoked until I was 18, until I moved out of my house because I thought my mom would beat the shit out of me, which she had in the past.
sure she
I
would've.
deserved it. And it made me a better man, actually. I think some kids need it, some don't. My brother didn't. I did.
Beatings or weed?
Probably both. I don't know if they're related whatsoever. It's it's kind of and the way that because it's tricky, right? Like there's no, I live by the concept that there's no solutions in life, only trade-offs, right? Like you do something, you shift something, it's gonna shift something else, right? You might not even be aware of what's being shifted, which I think it's kind of like what the miscommunication we're having right now, because we live in these bubbles. We only see the side of something that we want to see, and the other person is the other. It's wrong, right? And then the other person is seeing only what they want to see about that. And maybe it's like, oh, you're looking at the right hand, I'm looking at the left hand. They're both parts of the body, you know? Like
Right.
you're like, oh no, we shouldn't have a right hand. We should just have a left hand. Yeah, the body dies out and then the left hand dies. You know, like it's like, and yeah. So I be with that being trade offs. I forget where we started, but it was something about trade offs.
I was gonna say that I agree with Louis C.K.'s sort of joke that he does about getting like beating your kids, where he talks about like he's basically says he doesn't do it, but he also says like I have money and I work very infrequently, so I have time to talk to my kids.
Yeah.
And he's like, my mother used to hit me. And I get it. She was a single mom. She was poor. And I was like, Mom, I need stuff. And then she's like, shut up. You know? And
Yeah.
like, he's like, it's a matter of having the luxury of like having a relationship as opposed to just a responsibility. I mean, I was, like I said, youngest to 8. My parents were workaday, like teacher, and my dad was a builder, like construction. And no time. Like I think my dad left it before I woke up a lot of times, and then didn't come back till like he tried to make dinner a lot, but like a lot of times he'd end up coming back at dark or whatever, just staying on job sites and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mom could not handle the whole house, so I was basically just raised by my brothers, you know.
No, 100%.
And
That's why they have more kids, is to raise the younger
Yeah,
ones.
telephone
Yeah.
parenting.
It's
is what I call it.
100% that way, and it all just gets a little bit diluted as it goes.
All
down.
my brothers did was they'd like go to me like cryptically, like they got the in on, you know, what the real world is. Like mom and dad don't know what they're talking about. Like people, you know, like the outside world isn't nice, you know. And I was only like
Yeah,
4 or
yeah,
5,
yeah.
you know. They'd scare the shit out of me.
You know what? I actually some of the harsher lessons, but some of the better lessons that I've received have been from one of my older brothers, because my older
Absolutely, yeah.
brothers are 16, 15, and 14 years older than me, you know?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
similar.
So I remember I used to work with him, and he used to be in construction. He used to do hardwood floors, right? And I'm working from, you know, helping him whenever I'm like, you know, probably from 13 on infrequently, but I was probably around maybe 16, 17, and he's paying me above minimum wage, right? He's paying me like $10 an hour at the time.
Brotherly
20
love.
Right. But I'm thinking this job is hard and physical, right? And I was a little entitled, little like, mathlete kid, right? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, I should get a raise. He's like, why should I give you a raise? You know, and I'm like, oh, you know, because he's like, listen, he's like, I'm teaching you. He's like, I can hire, you know, anybody off the street and I can pay him less than you. You know, I'm doing you a favor, you know,
Right.
like, or whatever. He's like, well, why should I pay you more? Why are you worth more or whatever? Which coming from a builder, I was like, man, that's pretty harsh. But without that, maybe I would have been like, oh, I deserve it, right? Like, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this is not how the world is going to treat you. And in the sense, I really like what you mentioned about Louis C.K., because I don't know if it's about not having time. I've heard it said about this other way, and I thought there was something to it. It's like a parent's job is to mimic the outside environment as closely as possible. That way, the child is ready to face what comes away. And if you're a single mom, the environment that your experience is preparing your child, which obviously it's not a means, you can't guarantee their safety, to that they're gonna be wealthy, to contend with, like, you can go to jail. There's nobody bailing you out, right? So maybe I beat you so you don't do that, because they're gonna beat the shit out of you. Whereas Louis C.K. made man money, right? All of a sudden, the reality that their children will have will be wildly different. So perhaps he can afford to prepare them for the world as it is, within the reality that they're gonna live, which is very different than the reality of the single mom raising a child.
Oh, perspective, yeah.
He's getting them ready to take on the inheritance. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah.
Not just a different world.
Be
that-
responsible for these
a
millions.
different
Don't
world that-
go out there and
Their
shove it
floor
all up
is
your nose.
higher. You know, their floor is higher than whatever the floor might have been for him and his mom's side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always, think that if somebody is super stressed, you just see like animal nature come out. I mean, if you work like, over 12 hours in a day. I mean, when I was painting with my brother, I tried to go into that trade before I went in the military. And like, after you've worked like 14 hours straight of pure labor, like your brain doesn't even function anymore, And then now you got this kid, like, what's this guy, And it's just like, you love your family. And that's the whole thing that's the way I look at it is like, I love my family and we get along now. We're all adults. So it's like anything that happened in the past, it's not going to stop the fact that I choose to be in a frame of mind where it's like, we could all had a more loving experience. Granted, it's different circumstances, but that doesn't mean I'm going to pull away. Some people just pull completely
So
away.
Yes.
You're really close with your family? Then? Your brothers and
I organize like lunch, like Sunday dinners and stuff like that at my parents' house. Yeah, that was one of the
Nice.
things I wanted to do a lot when I came back was to do. I'm here. I mean, I'm gonna do like weekly.
You're here to do
dinners.
the family thing. See, putting your money where your mouth is. You're like, I'm gonna go home and hang out with my family. Instead, you're like, got high and played video games, and be like, okay, what are you doing, Tim? What's happening? How's the family?
I mean, I do anything I try to be a person of my word. I don't like to just. That's why I don't even like fake. Like a lot of things that people do in the city is like flake. Like that's really big. Like people promise to do stuff and they don't, and then they don't do it.
Sure.
Like that came to a surprise to like people in LA because one time I went to a coffee shop and there was this guy there like putting out his books and he's like, I wrote these books, and it was literally all those things we were talking about on the Instagram, like girls quotes. He just took all the quotes that he liked and put them in a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
a curator, you're like a DJ.
He curated
It's like a
all
DJ.
these positive sayings into a book. So he was kind of like this, California, like positive energy vibe type guy. And he's like, hey, man, I'm going to have my book signing or whatever tomorrow. I'm just setting up. He's like, if you want to come to it. And then I was like, all right. And I woke up the next day. I already said it. I mean, I said I was going to go and I didn't have anything else to do. So I show up. He's like, man, you made it. He's like, that's awesome. People don't normally do what they say they're going to do here.
Sure.
And you actually came out. And then we ended up becoming like friends and we hung out and stuff like that. It turns out he was Justin Bieber's choreographer. So like
That's amazing.
I thought you were about to say he was framed for murder, I thought that was gonna
Did people buy his book?
Yeah, I mean, he has a ton of following, all this stuff. People know who he is. I didn't know who he was. I was just like, I thought this guy was just some
Well, now you guys are buds.
poet,
That's so cool, kind of.
poet author dude. And then he even gave me like free hip hop dance lessons. Like if I went to, there's a place in LA
Or are
called
you just like,
Millennial Dance Complex. Yeah, I had to do all that shit.
Hell
like
yeah.
he said because I was at least 6 foot and white that I would be a good backup dancer because he's like shorter and black and he's like really fucking good. That's why he does all the choreography and stuff.
Yeah.
He's insane. Like, and there's videos on Instagram. That Millennium Dance Complex thing used to be like a place where before TikTok, like people would go on Instagram and they'd see these hip hop people. And if it's like a red background, it looks like a dance, whatever. That's that place.
that's cool. That's neat.
Like I've seen it so many times on people's Instagrams before TikTok.
But
And
did he think that he didn't do as well as a backup dancer because he wasn't tall?
no, he was on the stage all the time.
Exactly. And he was short, so why you got to be tall?
No, he says that you don't have to be as good of a dancer
Oh,
if
really?
you're
Okay.
6 foot and white. He's like, you don't have to be as good. He's like, he even offered. He was like, I'll train you if you wanted to. I was like, I don't want to be a dancer. I was like, this is not why I'm here
could be.
to dance for.
What do you want to do, sir? What is your?
I went there to be in entertainment, to be in the TV sketch, film, and stand up as well.
Yeah, is that
I wanna
still
do
what
the
you
whole
want to
thing.
do, or have your priorities changed?
No, I'm still trying to angle into that.
On the grind,
I
yeah,
just
man.
I just lost. I just had to leave. I don't have an agent right now. I just broke up with her last month. Yeah, it wasn't really necessarily a good fit for me, I guess. But yeah, I
Culture
was.
wasn't right.
Well, did she want you to dance, or
She, it just wasn't a good thing. I don't really have like a
Sounds
specific.
messy.
No, it wasn't too. It was pretty professional. It was just, it's just not like usually you have somebody that's gonna say, "I'm gonna manage you," or "I'm gonna be a talent agent for you," or something. You expect them to like be like specifically focused on work that matches you, not just blanket sending you stuff to submit to. I'm like, I can do this myself. Like, I don't need somebody, because I've done that with. So like I went down to South Carolina and I did there's a place that's like Sheets there. No, Georgia, my bad. It's called Parker's Kitchen.
Okay.
So Parker's Kitchen is the chain in Georgia.
Sheets is a gas station, right?
Sheets is like, it's a convenience store, gas
Okay.
station with like a lot of food, and they have a kitchen. So they cook like,
Oh, they have a
fried
kitchen.
It's like a
sandwiches.
fancy gas station.
Do they
like
have-
a-
Yeah,
like a-
they have like fried chicken sandwiches.
Do they have
and
pasta?
fries. Pasta?
Do they have pasta? Because
I don't know. Do they
Fried
have
sketch.
they have a interesting menu. I don't know. I haven't looked through it. So
I'm
looks
not eating
looks like
gas
a most,
station pasta.
looks like a bunch of cheesy stuff. I think
how
there's a lot of
bougie.
cheese on
I'm
thing.
not bougie.
you would you eat gas station pasta?
I think I'd eat Sheets. I mean, I had to eat this Parker's Kitchen
Yeah.
food for this commercial. So that's how I found that commercial myself. I was just like, submit to something myself, and then I was just like, I can do this without an agent that's not even finding
Sure.
stuff that's specific to me. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to trash anyone in the industry, because you don't know how people can help you. That's kind of the nature of things, is like anybody anywhere has potential to do good work. It doesn't matter if they're a small player or a big player. Everyone's capable of leading to something something interesting, or potentially some work. So I'm willing to work with just about anybody. It doesn't really make a difference to me who I work with, as long as it's just like, oh, we're all trying to be creative. You know?
Yeah. Now, who sounds positive?
Yeah. My life is shit,
that on
dude.
your-
I'm just trying to cover.
Put that on your Instagram.
Yeah, I should put it in a little book and sell it at a coffee shop.
So-
Absolutely. I bet people would buy. I'll buy your first copy. First printing.
Oh yeah.
I don't have
Put it on the manly girly coffee
I
table.
don't have
Yeah.
that huge following from being a famous person yet.
I would like you to just get pictures from other white girls' Instagrams and put those into a book
Yeah.
and sell it. Not necessarily even any words. You're like,
There's
people
a
would buy it,
there's a
probably.
word I encountered when I was out in California. It's called Pollyanna. You ever heard that word?
Pollyanna,
Yeah.
like the movie.
Well, it means something.
What does it mean?
It means like unfounded optimism in bad and necessarily like not necessarily good circumstances. So it's like somebody could have like it's good to have a positive attitude, but it's almost like a delusional positive attitude. It's like you're Pollyannic about, oh, our car got towed, so it's cool. It's like you never
We'll
take
skip home.
you never take anything. Yeah, you never let anything land in. Like I get it. It's good to be positive all the time, but just to never let anything land in like the anger part of your psyche. It's like in my mind, like emotions are all in one part of your soul, brain, whatever. And it's like you try to suppress one, you actually suppress all of them.
Right.
Like I know it's good to have like channel your anger in like constructive and whatever ways, but just never express it. It's like they come across as very anxious, and like what a repressed person does is a repressed person just uses just energy, energy, but it doesn't mean anything. Like,
Right.
it's a good time. We're having a good time. Like, this sucks. Our car got towed. Like, let's just admit it. It's not a good situation.
I mean, I tend to agree because, it's those things that make us, the hard things in life that make us better. And conflict is part of that. It's a huge part of that. Conflict in our lives and adversity. And
yeah.
I agree to a point, but I think degree matters, right? Because
Right.
I'm a firm, and I don't know if it's the same, but emotions come. And we have to be comfortable that we're gonna feel a certain way. We have a right to feel a certain thing. Whether we have it's rational for us to feel a certain way is what makes a difference, right? Like sometimes we've mentioned, right? Listen, you may be right, but that doesn't mean that internally I've been able to process that. So maybe I may still be upset. I know I'm not right, and I know I have no right to be upset, but I need the upsetness to go away. At the same time, I think that because there's a limited amount of time, and the universe, for all intents and purposes, has shown that it's at best indifferent about what any of us do. Then I don't find it much purpose, or I find more meaning in not worrying about the things that literally you can do nothing about, right? Like in the tow card scenario, I'd be like, okay, well, we'll go get it, whatever. This sucks, but am I gonna get stuck in the moment of when I lost when my car got towed? Because there's nothing I could have done about that anymore. Like there's like at the current state, in the past, I can't affect it. I can only affect things in the now and the future. And yeah, it sucks, but the time that I spend focusing on how much something sucks detracts from my ability to make new things in the future where I actually have agency over.
What if, let's give you an example of something that might supersede that ability to ration in the moment and calm yourself down. What if somebody else got your car towed, that was one of your buddies, and you were like, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to this meeting that you were going to meet with some like big level people, and they weren't interested, but obviously they like punctuality. They don't like.
Absolutely, that says a lot.
What your car would get towed, and you'd be standing there, and you'd be like,
With your dick in
well,
your hand.
I can't live in the moment of my car getting towed and my friend being a complete idiot. How are you going to rationalize that? I would turn around and be like, you fucking moron, dude. This is like, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't go resort to violence, but I would like walk over to like an open field and just yell as loud as I could.
100%. Yeah.
Well, but the question is, like, I guess my question is when you told that story later, you've missed your meeting, your car got towed, your buddy's a jerk, you're screaming in a field, and then 10 years later, you're going to tell that story. You're going to tell it with as much like vehemence and anger and what was balled up then, or is it going to be a funny story?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right?
It'd be way
so
funnier.
it's like,
yeah.
it's a little bit of perspective. And honestly, I guess even I would take it even, closer, it's not 10 years later. I mean, you got to laugh about things, even if it's still pretty close, I guess, feel things in the vastness that they are. Obviously your car getting towed and you missing a big meeting is a huge, big deal, and it'll make you angry, but it's not as bad as like your dog dying. You know what I mean? So you might feel bad about your dog dying
or maybe
longer than you would feel bad about your car getting towed. And I don't know.
Or my mom says this, like, like maybe sometimes when you were late, maybe you got you died in a car accident on the way to the thing.
This is a little final destination.
Or like, missing a bus or whatever. So it's very identity bureau, but it's like because of that is a thing, So it's like, if anything, oh no, I wanted to get on that car. That could have been the very thing that ended your life. And if anything, it can be because you don't know the path that didn't happen, right?
So you got like a butterfly effect mindset.
Yeah, I have recently been told the term is that I have a non-linear way that my mind thinks.
That's how like gurus see the world. They're like very spiritual about everything. They're like, you ever heard that old fable?
We've been getting very philosophical.
Yeah,
lately.
you ever heard that old fable where like a guy like loses or he has a farm that like produces a lot of things, and everybody in the village goes, oh great, and it's the wise man says, oh we'll wait and see. They're like, isn't that good? They're like, wait and see. Oh, he like the crops die. It's just you waver back from like good thing to bad thing, and every time they go up to the wise man, they're like, hey, he broke his leg, isn't that bad? And he goes, we'll see. And
oh, I remember that
because he couldn't.
I've heard of
it always leads to something else. So it's like, your spiritual people always say, it happened for a reason.
Well, and even if it didn't happen for a reason, the reason is the reason, so it's like it already happened. So what are you gonna? So I guess it is.
Yeah, I have
it
the
is
reason.
because
My
it
friend
is
is stupid.
Yeah.
No, for example, right? And I think that there's what you mentioned. I hadn't heard about that, but it makes sense. Let's say we were talking about this last night a little bit, where let's say your comedic ability, being the last one, maybe not getting as much attention, right? Or maybe let's say you have I had, let's say, a dad. I didn't even know I wasn't my dad's favorite until like this year.
Ooh,
This year,
what?
my dad that died 2 years ago. Like I only found out. Like I'm
Wait,
like, oh yeah.
what happened? How did you find? How would this get presented? to
Like
you?
all of a sudden, no, it was just like in conversation, and yeah, no, and my brother, wanted to, and my mom was saying something like, oh yeah, no, your brother, felt really bad because he didn't want you to hate him because of like your dad's, preference for him, and I'm like, my dad had a preference for him. I'm like, I'm an idiot because I could never tell, like, but I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense because in the way that,
Is this your mom telling you?
yeah.
She thought he knew.
I thought I
Oh
knew,
man, she just like,
like
spilled the beans
Yeah, she
casually.
did.
no, but we're in a family where, like, it's like if I didn't process that or my issues with my dad, right? But even my dad, was in a way, he wasn't and we were talking about this, right? Maybe he wasn't the father that as a child maybe I needed or expected, right? But I think as we get older, right, we realize that we're all human, and not that it's right, but because of that, right, the pressure against that, right, it really crush you or it'll make you, right? So perhaps that develops certain things in my own personality that makes me successful now that it or free. I feel very free. In a world where people are very worried, I'm entirely like, oh, not entirely, but I try to be as free as I can with what I say, with what I think, the ability to change my mind. And maybe I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have to wrestle with the fact it's like, why is my dad behaving this way when he shouldn't? Giving me a different perspective of the normal life, giving it a different, like the second eye of an angle to then be able to look at the rest of life with a different perspective that if that didn't happen to me, which theoretically negative, or that a father shouldn't be like that, then perhaps I don't become the person that I am, you know? And then that's why it's, well, there's nothing to do about that, but I can focus. Oh, I hate my dad forever. And then the negative effect that that's going to have personally for me, emotionally or whatever.
Right.
Or the ability to make peace and understand that. And it's like, okay, there are certain things that, regardless of what happened, not excusing it, that maybe it did benefit me in some ways. Yeah.
You're like Tony Robbins.
Huh? It's too much weed, guys. About a weed.
I mean, that's just isn't that personal development? You catch behaviors or thought patterns or something, and you're like, I don't want to think that way, or I don't want to feel that way. Oh, and then you sort of rewrite the narrative so that it's still the same story, but told with a different, I don't know, lens, tone,
Sure.
Perspective.
perspective. Yeah,
Well, it's like what they have, just scenes, and you put happy music over it, and you put sad music over it, and or scary music, and all of a sudden it completely changes, but it's still the same story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And human beings, right, strive for this state of flow, the state of right now, right, living in the moment, right. I wrote it earlier, like consciousness is ridiculous, like because we're, as far as we know, the only being that, let's say, consciousness is you remember your past and you can project into your future, so you're aware of where you are in the present. Every other thing is not. It's reacting. It's like, oh, a rabbit's like moving around, right? It's more in the moment. And because of that consciousness that reminds us of the past and allows us to view into the future, we see life linearly. Like it goes from beginning to end. And I think that can sometimes blind us, especially now in a world where we're like within chambers of echoes, where everybody's walking that same linear path, to know that, oh, it's not that the other person's wrong or intolerant or whatever. I'm just looking at it in a linear fashion where there may be a non-linear way because everybody has their own vector, so it's not linear. It's only within here. And I think there's that misunderstanding, and I think it can be easy to, and I think maybe that's what change of perspective is. All of a sudden it's like, well, I perceive my life linearly, and trauma, something happened to me, or something happened that made me step out of that line and look at it from a different vector so I can see somebody else's point of view. Think about it like a Republican senator that had no reason to care about gay people, right? Linear life. Oh, life is this, this. All of a sudden, child comes out, breaks all of a sudden the line, their perspective. They're forced to look at it from another viewpoint, and all of a sudden they're able to evolve, right? Empathy, because it breaks the linearity that's almost built into our brain by being able to be conscious and remember the past and project into the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, empathy work is sort of like I mean, what I tried to do a lot of when I was in LA, I used to go to this acting class. This guy had some pretty good connections. Like they were just expensive. So
The
but
classes or the connections? What
And
do you
they
mean?
taught you how to
Yeah.
be empathetic, or
Well,
on
I mean,
camera?
that's sort of like the goal of
Yeah.
acting is to. It's like you got all your problems and all your life concerns you got to deal with, but then to sort of, you could either map that over like somebody else's perspective, like how the two are similar,
Mm-hmm.
or you can just sort of like use techniques to get out of your own shit and like in the moment
Sure.
and
That's
relate to
interesting.
like the words and then the story. I mean, that's a lot of weird, like I guess you could say like what people would say is like kooky sort of philosophy, but I've seen people like literally bawl like
Yeah.
in a room like this and
Yeah.
just like tears like snot coming down.
Holy
and it's
cow.
like yeah, and
As
it's
acting,
literally
not a real, not
literally
like.
a fake story.
Interesting. I mean, you know, we see it on screen, and those people win Oscars.
That's why you
so-
can't trust
Yeah.
actors. You can't trust anything they say. You know.
You heard it here
But,
first. people.
well, in a long form podcast, you get to know who you are, right? Like,
Yeah.
but in clips or image, right? You can portray whatever you want on the internet, really. Especially if it's manufactured, you know.
Yeah. Well, I did a lot of improv, and that's like an actor's tool. Like that's the first thing I learned when I started doing it in grade school, and then I noticed it was like a show, and you could just do it for people. And I was like, we're doing like essentially actors warm ups, and now that's a show. So people wanted to see this. It's like behind the scenes of what people
Yeah.
are doing
Sure,
backstage,
yeah.
and now they just turned it into like a show, and it's like improv everywhere. Like people go watch people build scenes live, and it's just like it's kind of wonky. But I'm like, that's the reason it's wonky is because these aren't written lines. You know, this is sort of people just trying to figure out how to get into a scene and then do sort of like acting work. And then when I went down to LA, I was like, well, I have all this experience on ensembles, but I don't have any experience with like high level emotional actor work, you know? And that's when I did a class in North Hollywood is like Playhouse West. I think like a couple people like Jim Carrey and like James Franco and all that stuff. I think James Franco was trying to expand that place for a little bit. They use like, there's techniques like Meisner and method acting and all that stuff. They were big on like Meisner. And then when I got out of that place, because I only stayed there for a little bit until like I got yelled at a lot because I was I guess I'm kind of a rebellious degenerate in some ways. Like I showed up to class one time late, and the teacher was like, are you serious about this? Are you going to be late all the time? You got to better have a good reason. Like they're just like, they want to kick you out as fast as possible. They want to like,
They only want
threaten
super
you.
serious people.
It's
huh?
insane. Yeah, LA is super serious people. So I was like, I had a phone audition because they were like only industry excuses are excuses. So I was like, I had a phone audition. She's like, what time was it? And I was like, 10:30, and it was 11 o'clock. She's like, it took you 30 minutes to do a phone thing, and I was like, no. She's like, don't lie to me, like,
were you lying?
ever again. I mean, I was basically, I wasn't lying, but
Did you have a phone audition?
I was basically saying it took me 20 minutes to walk 5 minutes.
Right.
So she's like, you're lying to me. It didn't keep
She's
you
probably
from
used to
coming
it.
here.
Well,
Yeah,
She sounds like
Kind
my
of like
mom.
what you were talking about.
yeah, dude. They deal with a lot of like prima donnas and egos and stuff
Well, like
that.
the
So
flakes
there's
you were talking about, and you said the flakiness, and she's probably like, I'm over the flakes.
Yeah.
You show up to this class or you're done, son.
yeah, I didn't last long in that scene. I didn't last long. I probably could have. I probably should have. I mean, looking back on it, I probably should have stayed. I probably should have got over myself and stayed in the program. But for whatever reason, I felt like I was under some sort of pressure.
Yeah.
I was in a sort of a pressured situation to like make things happen. I was in a cohabitation situation where we were trying to like, I guess, move the ball forward in life. I guess we both felt like we were getting old. I don't know. Well, you hit that point where you get these, you get that idea that it's like we need to be the successful ones, or we need to, and two people in that same mindset is like chaos, because we're both moving through life as if we're limited on time or we're behind schedule.
Oh.
And it makes you very impatient, and
I can see
especially with the city and trying to make we were.
Not
She even
practicing a
said
lot
one
of
time,
patience.
she's like, I'm not a patient person. She like literally said, like, it wasn't like, oh, we're just not patient. She was just like, I know I'm not. I was like, okay. And I was like, I guess I was like that too. But like you said, we getting older and fragile. You actually develop more patience the older you get. So I mean, I feel like I'm more patient now than I was when I had more time.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Oh,
I was younger, and I was like, I have all the time in the world, but somehow I think it needs to happen today.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So, but what needs to happen, right? So, as you mentioned, right, you want to do acting and comedy, right? But like, so what is the level of success? I like that you mentioned success, right? That because success means different for everybody, right? So, and even can mean differently for yourself through different stages of your life, right? Like, so maybe what you defined as success 10 years ago is different than how you would define success today with what you lived, experiences, how you've changed or whatever, right? So, in your perspective, with what you're looking to achieve, what does success look like?
$10 billion.
Yeah. So is it money? Because
specific
there's easier
number.
ways of making money.
I just.
You're like, when I get there, I'll be.
I
I'll
honestly
be done.
didn't. I was just like, oh, if I get a regular. I mean, some of them people who work, it's called day players on TV shows. They get like $800 a day.
Yeah.
Or like just like a series regular on like even like a daytime crime drama. I did some like CSI background stuff, and I just remember I was talking to some of these guys, and some of them are older because they all look like they're old police detectives and stuff like that. And even they were saying like trying to get even a daytime slot, and they don't even pay that much for those shows. Like, I mean, those guys make decent money, but it's not like movie star money. And it's just like, in my mind, I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to be at that position. That'd be cool. But they're like, yeah, and it's very difficult. They were like making it a point to say like, yeah, and it's extremely hard to even have like a regular
So
income.
that would be your version. Like, if you reached that thing, then you would say, hey, I've made it and I've done these things that I wanted to do. But you wouldn't stop there, would you? I
mean, I like the idea of being in demand, like working.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like, I guess I'm having more bookings with stand-up comedy. So that's like positive.
Your name. Yeah.
That's like positive to me. Like, it's taken, I don't know, I've since I came back and only have been doing stand-up as far as creative performance and stuff like that. Like, it's been, I started like late 2018, so almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And now to get booked on not a super regular basis, but way more than I did my first year or two or whatever. Some people are really good at it and they just get booked right away in their first or second year because they're just naturally super conversational or whatever. My thing is I'm a very analytical person, like I always have been. My dad even says we come from a family of OCD,
Okay.
so I guess that OCD with having kids too.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, that's why none of you died.
Huh?
That's why none of you died. You made it all the way.
Yeah, because they were so obsessed about
Exactly. They're like
making
just
sure we
holding
got
on to it.
fed top ramen and
They want to make sure there was divisible by 2 and 4. That's pretty OCD.
yeah. So, I mean, I think I do a pretty good job of being relatable when I do stand up, but because I did all this other stuff, all this other creative stuff, which is, I mean, if you really think about it, you're doing scene work and you're doing trying to do like acting and stuff like that in LA. You're not trying to be relatable. You're trying to get people to relate to a completely like, not all stories are fictitious, but you're trying to get them to relate to things that aren't real in the moment,
Sure.
but you making them real
That's
through.
so interesting.
techniques and sort of like a desire to be a good storyteller. And so what it ends up happening is like that's why a lot of people, they like, actors are weird. Like they're like, people interact with them.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because there is that layer. They're trying to create that with that fourth wall. So when you're looking, it's like you're looking into somebody's carrying around a completely different story. I mean, if somebody gets a script and they do like a 100-page movie, they're literally trying to live in that world in their mind as much as they can before they actually have to perform it, because the more you do that in your mind, the more you're sort of like in that world when you have to perform it. And I relate it to like other jobs too, with like people who code, you know, like they're so in that world. Like, yeah, I've talked to people who are like in that world where they do so much IT, and sometimes to me they kind of sound like the way they work.
A little bit.
It's sort of robotic, but it's almost like they use the statements like if then, you know, statements. That's like a common thing in like JavaScript. So it's almost like they're like, okay, if I were to accept your agreement for this business thing, then what could I expect? And it's like you're talking like the code.
I love them. I
You
think
know?
they're great.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta like, that's another thing about like in that world is you gotta learn how to observe people a lot.
How dare you talk in logic structures like the code, you know, to make a deal?
It's almost, I think it's just automatic. If you do it so much, it's a default, because your brain is just like, I'm going to default to that because it's easier. Most people are when they're not working or in their working, they're also lazy. Like people just want to be, you know.
Well, and they're around people who speak that language most of the time. They're communicating in the native tongue.
I don't even call it lazy. I think 100%, right? You get the jargon. But I think it's...
Lazy is the word for efficient.
I think, well, how is... did you ever play any sports growing up, like baseball or anything?
I did play baseball.
Okay, so
football.
hitting a baseball, right? Mm-hmm. In the moment, that becomes more muscle memory then, right? So, and I like to call it like it's kind of almost like autopilot, right? I call it the click effect. I think most of us, not only in the muscle, but there are things, how do you brush your teeth or whatever? We do things in autopilot, and that translates to the way we talk, right? Like kind of like click, he's just able to speed up. And that's why we can't change the things about them. Like, why do you always do this? It's my autopilot. That is my default, unless I put a rock in the way so that the autopilot like zigs where it should sag, right? Whatever. And so I see what you're saying. I'd say it's not so much laziness, but a lot of us have an autopilot and we're not even aware of it. And that's why we do things just without knowing, even though we have the power to, if we were actively looking at them, do them differently. But push comes to shove, muscle memory or the default, right? And that goes to your point that I think these people are just speaking a jargon all the time, that becomes their autopilot. So even when they're talking to somebody outside of tech, they just default to like, they don't even realize it's efficient water, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
I saw a video one time where they put a brain scan on Formula One drivers.
Oh, that's
interesting. And you could watch like a little meter, and it would show how much brain activity is happening. And while they're driving like a track they know, it's almost like their brain is dead.
Oh, right. Because it's
not
just like,
cool.
it's just...
And the only time like it flared up was during like one of those really hard like U-turns they had to do. One of the things they've sort of like all the drivers were doing was when they make that turn, the only thing that he has to look for is kind of like a tree, like a land. They always choose a landmark to like help correct themselves. And there's like a tree, like a palm tree in part of the track or whatever. And so they look for that palm tree. So like when he was rounding that corner, it's literally no brain activity until he starts looking for the palm tree. And you see it flare up and he finds it, and then he straightens his car out to head straight.
That is
and
very
literally the brain
really
activity
cool.
goes back down to like next to nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like, you know, if that was the scenario, you know, but...
What'd you say?
It's like idle, you know, like
idle, yeah. You're
like,
idling your brain for sure.
Yeah, it's on, but it's...
Well, I mean, I think though, you know, to Arturo's point, the autopilot is something that we do constantly in our lives that we're not aware of. You know what I mean? It's brushing your teeth, the way you drive to work. if I get thrown off on the way that I drive to work, I'm going to be late, not because, I missed my turn, but because my autopilot has now been thrown off and I'm going to have to figure this out and readjust and everything. I hate it. I hate missing my turn, mostly because I don't know where I'm going around here, but so.
You get used to driving a certain way. Sometimes you get in the car and you pull up to the place that you're like, did I just drive here?
My
I
father,
don't even remember the drive.
My father is getting to that, because he's old, but he can go to the grocery store, he can drive to work, and he can drive to my brother's house, and those are the 3 places that he drives.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of the brain flaring up, I have a question for you. Tell me how much you think this person's brain was flaring up here.
Oh, I've seen this, dude.
I've never seen. I still can't see it.
You wait.
Yeah. I've seen.
It's a climber.
What? Oh my God. Oh my goodness.
People are giving this guy shit, for his scream, right, or his voice cracking. When adrenaline hits, sometimes your voice cracks, like imagine.
People are giving this man shit. He
Yeah,
just
what a
fought off a
fucking
bear.
pussy crying like a little bitch, like people on the internet are giving this guy
Yeah,
shit
a
out
bunch
there.
of people sitting on a keyboard
I felt terrified
who
for him.
are at the comfort of their own home to talk shit.
Absolutely,
They're like, I've never
absolutely.
even met a mean chihuahua. This dude just fought off a bear. Oh my gosh. No, that was very anxiety inducing. I didn't notice his scream. I would have been screaming way, way worse.
Do you think his brain flared up?
Yeah.
It was nothing but activity.
Brain flares up, and so does his underwear
I'm
flares up.
surprised
Yeah.
he didn't take a moment to reevaluate his voice and
Yeah.
calm the situation
Right.
down.
Yeah.
Consider his tone.
Consider his tone.
Consider the internet.
Well,
How will this
how will this
reflect on
look?
you?
Yeah.
Well, do you know? Have you ever heard of somebody called Fed Smoker?
Fed smoker?
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
Okay, I'm gonna see you. Tell me what you think about this guy.
Was I supposed to comment on this video?
No, it's all right. We just want to see your
You already
reaction.
did.
Oh, I did. Okay. This guy sounds like he's drunk. Department of what?
Transportation, I think.
Can you tell me the speed limit out here, my dear brother?
Well, it's marked on the signs.
60.
Well, it's variable.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's right here. It's typically 60.
Yeah. Oh, I clipped you in going like 75. I clipped you in going, I'm not a cop. I was filming you about 70.
He's not a cop.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Well, I have a speedometer. Maybe my speedometer's off, but you were flying, brother. Okay, what's your name anyways?
What's your name?
I'm Carl Peterson. I was just wondering how you passed me so easy, and then you just flew right by me. Yeah, you did. I don't know if you're allowed to do that or not, being or is this a government position?
What?
You were doing over 70, sir, times, so I just thought I'd ask you.
What would you do if a stranger pulls you over?
I would not even open the door.
Yeah, I'm not a police officer. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do.
Okay.
But I can tell you that if you want to be driving while you're filming, that's against the law.
This is just two guys who don't know how to talk.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll give you a better, maybe a more.
A good introduction.
It's
to
like
the
two
Fed
guys
smoker.
who don't know how to like deal with conflict.
How about
That's
this?
what it looks like.
Well, one of them doesn't.
Yeah.
All this for some tweaker bitch getting crazy. All this Americans. That tweak must be getting strong these days. Bitches leashing out at people right in the parking lot of a gas station.
That's good too.
All this, brother. Is this far enough back? Oh my God, how you doing, brother? It's crazy, man. Pull into a gas station, get attacked, man. Jesus, by a woman.
I thought this one was different. Sorry about that.
Americans, life's getting weird.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, this is Fed Smoker. He's the character in such good hits as this one. This one he's a little more.
Hi, my name is Forrest Ferguson. Yeah, what you want? I want you to understand what the question was. What's the question, retard? You know, you don't have to do an answer. I don't even want to talk to you. Why don't you get the fuck away from me? Your dog drank water. The dog's sitting there not doing a fucking thing, retard, except drinking his fucking water and eating. Hey, you want me to call him for you, motherfucker? Right now. Call him up, buddy. They're gonna tell you you're stupid as shit. My dog's eating right here. He ain't bothering a fucking soul, okay, buddy? Well, then what the fuck are you talking to me for? I asked you why did you tell that gentleman to not walk me? Because his dog's about a half foot tall and I didn't want this dog to step on it, okay? Fair enough. Okay? Don't even talk to me again, dude. Okay? I don't. Oh, yeah? Don't you threaten me, you bitch. Don't you ever threaten me. I'd put cops in prison, you dumb motherfucker. Okay? Why don't you ask him about that, cocksucker? Why don't you just get the fuck...
So is his deal that he just goes around and antagonizes
He's a
people?
fucking asshole. Yeah.
No. I mean, you know he's an asshole, but like that's his whole shtick. Is like he just goes to people and specifically, actively tries to antagonize them in order to get a rise.
Yeah,
out
I
of
think
them.
he's paranoid. Most of the time, he's like, I put cops in prison.
Do you think he believes that? Do you think he's?
Well, he believes nothing because he's dead now. But
he died.
yeah.
Why did he
Yeah,
die? All the cocaine?
Yeah, I think meth might have been the culprit, but I don't know.
Okay.
He was found on the side of the road with that car like somewhere. It's crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of like he's on stuff. So
Well, and then the reason why I bring this up is because we were wondering. It's like, okay, we live in a very civilized society, especially newer generation, right? What does the new generation do when they run across a guy like this? Because a guy like this, they're not gonna be like, oh no, I'm
He's
offended.
not
Like it's not gonna respond to that.
you mean like, what are people gonna? I think it would be similar to this. Like people would just be like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna. They're either gonna try to fight him or they're just gonna be like, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I lived in the city where it's like that's people talking like that.
Oh, yeah?
It's like every day, just screaming even to themselves.
You're like,
it's-
I was
it doesn't have to
not
be-
fazed by this
Maybe
video
it was
because
a-
I've seen it constantly.
It doesn't have to be directed at anybody. Yeah, like if somebody's spouting off, they're swearing every other word. They're not articulate about anything in particular. The only thing they know how to do is to connect through. It's like their form of connecting to somebody else is to see. They know they're not gonna get this person's, compassion. So they might as well get their anger.
Oh, like you gotta
like
pay
a
attention
poorly
to me.
behaved child. They're like,
Yeah, like it's
if
their
you
way of
won't pay
getting
attention
attention.
to me, I'm gonna get some negative attention.
Everybody
Okay.
loves attention, doesn't matter what kind it is. I mean, it's attention. And this
Okay.
guy seems like he doesn't get any much. I mean, he's literally in his car with his dog. Like that's his best. He doesn't get a lot. It doesn't seem like he gets a lot of human.
This is
attention.
his human interaction.
Yeah, he's like, I need it.
I love
interaction."
your perspective that's his human interaction.
Oh, I know guys like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring back. Tell me if you've seen this, because we're bringing back. The other day we played for some of our Gen Z friends. We were telling you some clips that they've never seen before. This is an oldie but a goodie. You might have seen this one, and tell me what you would do if somebody comes up to you like this. Oh, I'm not streaming, am I? Whoops. Here we go. YouTube Fire Stick. Here you go.
Until they get here, I bet
No.
No, it's not that one.
Just kidding. It's more Fed Smoker. Ha ha.
yeah.
Vitalized TV.
Right in your face.
What's this? Russian hitman.
I don't know which one is one of you. Your life, your choice, 60 seconds.
Your life, your choice. 60 seconds.
You always got to do that around like young guys too,
Yeah.
because like people are more gullible when they're young.
Yeah, this is South
Sure,
Florida
yeah.
too. I grew up in South Florida. He was doing
Yeah.
this earlier.
Your life, your choice, 60 seconds. Yes, transactions completed.
Transactions.
Yes. Give it to him. This is yours. This is yours. Take it. 60 seconds.
Just take it.
Take it. They're watching you. Take it, take it.
They're watching me.
Bro. No, bro. Take it, bro. Run, take it. You should run. Run, run. Do what you want. Your life, your choice. 60 seconds. Thank you.
He just gets out of a car and jumps off a.
Oh, he threw it. Oh shit, he threw it into the. Oh, okay, it didn't hit a car.
Oh yeah, this is the crescendo.
The dude ran.
Oh, he chased
Oh, he's
him.
trying-
Squared up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh shit. He's running at him. What's going on?
I would run.
This is so wild. Oh, he kicked him.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Well, I mean, it was a threatening act. Run! Run!
What I like is that he
Oh, he
comes
goes over and kicks the camera.
Oh no! He had this coming.
Yeah. I like the guy just starts whooping ass wholesale.
Do you know what's so funny? Is he's kind of like Fed Smoker. He is like, let me chase this conflict. Let me be because that is an antagonistic sort of thing to do to somebody.
Yeah.
If that man did something like that to me and I found out it was a gag, you better believe I'd beat his ass.
Yeah.
Don't you come up to me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he tried to he pointed at the camera and like that would diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
It's just a joke. It's just a prank.
Yeah.
The dude it's just
Oh no, it
kicked
ain't a
him.
prank. You threatened me.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care. You know, you're getting your ass whooped.
Yeah,
Ain't no
that's
jokes up
wild.
in here, player.
That's wild.
Yeah, no, he got arrested for like a bomb scare, basically.
100%.
Oh,
That's
really?
exactly what it is.
Yeah,
That's exactly
yeah.
what I would
Wow.
think. I'm like, why would you threaten me like that?
Okay.
The world's not scary enough already.
Yeah. I guess it is traumatic to claim that you might die.
You're like, no, I
soon.
thought it was hilarious.
I mean, I thought it was like silly at first and he was pushing it, but yeah, I mean, I could see how people would be like, But I mean, that's like guys who are going out there and trying to do prank shows against civilians, where it's like a lot of these prank YouTube things, they're like paying they're paying like people
Yeah.
to just be in their prank video.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of them are fake.
And nowadays, almost
Prank
everything
videos?
seems fake, you know?
Well,
How
I
can you
mean,
tell?
like a lot of
Oh,
the
they
ones.
set it up to have the outcome that they'd like. So that
Well,
it
even
looks
the people,
amazing.
even the people that are
Being pranked? Yeah.
pranked are just they're
Actors.
in on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like, what, and then they're like, you're on the TV, and like, yeah, this is wild stuff.
If you had one way that you're like gonna die, you're like, you know what? If I'm gonna die, I'd rather go out this way. What are you doing? Not in the sleep, you know, not peaceful in the sleep or whatever, right? Everybody, but like if it had to be in the middle of an action, what are you doing in that action?
In the middle of an action. I guess the default answer is sex, but I don't want to go with that. It's not interesting.
It can be sex while you're doing something else, right? If there it can be a compound,
like being electrocuted, like like that National Lampoon's poster where he's holding one end of the
yeah,
Yes.
wire and the other
yeah,
end of the wire.
yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't mind dish.
Oh,
He-
Like
you know,
I'm holding 2 cables together to keep the
Yeah.
power going to.
hey, you're sending Marty back to the
hospital.
future. You know, that's important.
Yeah, sending Morty back to the future. Yeah, getting that flux capacitor, the energy it
Yeah.
needs.
Perfect. That's a great answer. How about you, Andy?
Cheeseburger on the toilet.
Ooh.
Cheeseburger on the toilet.
Elvis
I mean,
Yeah,
you're
I was
already
gonna
ready.
say
You're gonna
Presley.
evacuate your bowels, so you're at least keeping it tidy. You know, like,
Exactly. You know.
you
I'm
know.
just
And I hadn't thought about it until just this moment
bathroom's a
that
clean
I.
mess.
Hell yeah, it's gonna be a mess no matter what. At least it's tile on the floor. You know.
But cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Cheeseburger in
Elvis,
paradise is what I call that.
Cheeseburger. I'm telling you, you know, Elvis had it right.
I think I'm just gonna eat all my cheeseburgers in the bathroom just in case that happens. Yeah.
I do like
some Jimmy Buffett while you're in there.
spandex and sparkly things too. So
I hadn't thought about it before, but launch me into a black hole. I want to see like as your matter gets pulled apart, right? Like, at what point
Whoa.
do you lose consciousness, or is it excruciaingly painful?
I think you'd
Doesn't
be,
matter
I
at
think
that
you'd be
point,
dead
though,
like
does it?
light years away from it.
Yeah. Well, Tim, thank you. Where can people
Yeah,
find you?
thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's
thank
good.
you.
Where can the good people at home find you if they watch this episode?
So you can go to Tim King Comedy with a K on Instagram, and that's the easiest way to follow me because I'll post what shows I'm going to do.
Hell yeah. And you're very funny, buddy. So
Thank you
thanks
so
again
much.
for
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
on the
awesome.
podcast.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you, Anley. This has been Manly Girly.